Have you ever been in a hotel alone and felt like something was wrong? You turn off the lights to go to bed, but you feel like someone is watching you from the dark. Footsteps echo from the empty hallway, or worse, soft breathing right next to your ear even though you are the only one in the room. Luxurious hotels with bright lights, spacious and comfortable rooms are places where countless mysterious things happen. Behind closed doors are creepy mysteries, horrifying stories that not everyone is brave enough to hear. If you still think hotels are just normal places to rest, the following 5 true stories may make you think again. Story 1. The floor was silent. Located in the middle of a quaint, historic town, I booked a room at the Grand Regency Hotel. It's a charming old building with creaky floors and a timeless atmosphere. I went there for a weekend getaway, hoping to immerse myself in local history and relax. The staff was friendly, and my room, although a bit dated, was comfortable. On the second night, I decided to explore the hotel. I've heard locals gossip about the mysterious 4th floor, which is said to be closed to guests. Curiosity prevailed, and I found myself sneaking past the employees' only sign and up the old winding staircase. When I reached the 4th floor, I noticed a strange silence. The air felt thick, and the hallway was dim, with only a few flickering lights casting strange shadows on the walls. All the doors were tightly closed, and there was an ominous silence. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps echoing ominously. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper followed by shuffling footsteps. I stopped, my heart pounding, and listened. The whispering grew louder, seemingly coming from behind one of the doors. I cautiously approached the door and pressed my ear to it. "Help me." A voice whispered from inside. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I tried turning the doorknob, but it was locked. The whispers turned to desperate pleas, and I could hear what sounded like nails scraping against wood. Panic set in, and I backed away, turned around, and ran. As I did so, I saw a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway looking at me. I rushed down the stairs, not stopping until I reached my room. I was awake all night, every creak and groan of the old hotel startling me. The next morning, I checked out early. As I was about to leave, I heard a staff member talking about the 4th floor. "It's been closed for years," they say. "Too many strange things happen there. It's best to leave it as it is." I never returned to the Grand Regency Hotel, but memories of the whispered pleas and figures in the hallways still haunt me. Story 2. Ghost Employee. At 21, after a violent argument with my father, I needed to escape. I checked into a nearby Quality Inn, hoping to find some peace. The hotel was eerily deserted, its halls echoing with emptiness. My room, located in the middle of a deserted hallway, only added to the unsettling atmosphere. After a swim to clear my mind, I returned to my room and tried to relax. Suddenly, a gentle knock broke my solitude. No one called out, but I heard the beep of the electronic lock and the door creak, confused and slightly unnerved. I called, "No thanks," but received no response. Then, the door slammed shut with a force that made me jump. Startled, I quickly ran to see who it was, but the hallway was empty. At the far end, I glimpsed a leg disappearing around the corner. I chased after it, only to find a corridor of closed doors. It was as if whoever was there had vanished into thin air. Disturbed, I reported the incident to the receptionist. She mentioned an employee named Rosa and promised to look into it, her casual demeanor failing to ease my growing unease. Back in the room, I tried to calm down by talking to my mother about the ongoing family conflict. Exhausted, I fell asleep early, hoping to escape my anxiety. I awoke to a noise that froze my blood. In the dim light, a shadowy figure loomed over my bed. An older woman with wild, crazed eyes and disheveled hair stood there, her presence radiating malice. She lunged at me, her hands icy as they clamped around my throat. Her grip was weak but filled with an unnatural strength driven by madness. She hissed unintelligible words, her breath foul and cold against my face. Terrified, I struggled and managed to break free, fleeing down the hallway to the front desk. I recounted the horrifying encounter to the receptionist, who paled and confessed that an employee had lost the master key. Furious and horrified, I demanded a refund and reported the incident to the police. That night, I returned home, where my father, in a rare show of sympathy, listened to my tale of terror. He had never seen me so shaken. I never had to leave home again, but the memory of that night stayed with me. The vision of the crazed woman, the feeling of her cold hands around my throat, left a permanent scar on my mind, a haunting reminder that sometimes the worst horrors come from the places we seek refuge. Story 3. The room disappeared. A few years ago, I went on a road trip through the southwestern United States. Exhausted after a long day of driving, I checked into a small roadside motel in the middle of nowhere. The place was run down, but I was too tired to. The receptionist, an older woman with a tired smile, gave me the key to room 108. I found my room at the back of the motel, separate from the other rooms. The door creaked when I opened it, and the inside was as shabby as the outside. However, I'm still grateful to have a bed and a place to rest. After a quick shower, I fell onto the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Around midnight, I woke up to a knock on the door. At first, it was mild, but then it became larger and more persistent. Drowsy and confused, I got up and opened the door. There was no one there. I stepped outside, looked both ways down the deserted hallway, but saw nothing. Shaking my head, I went back inside and locked the door. As I lay down, the knocking started again, this time coming from the wall behind the bed. I pressed my ear against the wall and heard muffled voices. It sounded like a conversation, but I couldn't make out any words. Frustrated and a little worried, I decided to investigate. I walked out into the hallway and knocked on the door of the room next to mine, room 107. There was no answer. I tried opening the door, but it was locked. Then I went to the reception and told the receptionist about the. She looked confused and checked her profile. Room 107 has been vacant for weeks. She said, "No one should go in there." Determined to get to the bottom of this, she took the master key and accompanied me back to the room. As we approached, I noticed the door to room 107 was slightly ajar. She pushed the door open and we both gasped. The room was completely empty, but it looked like it had been hastily abandoned. The bed was unmade, and there were personal items scattered around: clothes, a suitcase, even a half-eaten meal on the table. The receptionist and I exchanged worried looks. She decided to call the police. They arrived and conducted a thorough search, but found no trace of the previous occupants of the room. I moved to another room for the night, but I couldn't sleep. The next morning, when I was checking out, the receptionist gave me a piece of paper. "I apologize for the inconvenience," the note said. "Please accept this as a refund for your stay." I thanked her and left, feeling uncomfortable. After that, I tried looking up information about the motel online to see if there was any news about the mysterious room number 107. To my surprise, I found nothing. The motel seemed to have disappeared, as if it had never existed. Story 4. Nightmare Wardrobe. Being 24 and traveling for work means being alone in a hotel, something I've dreaded since I was a child. This time, it's a comfort inn in North Carolina. After a long day, I sit down to watch a movie. As the scary scenes of Saw played out, my childhood fear of dark hotel rooms came rushing back. I heard faint clicking noises from the closet but tried to ignore them, turning up the volume. Sleep comes slowly, aided by sleeping pills. But the noise continued, sporadic but unmistakable. Suddenly, I woke up to the sound of rustling fabric. My heart was pounding as I turned on the nightlight. There, in the dim light, a large figure dressed in black was rummaging through my bag. Paralyzed with fear, I screamed. The intruder, a tall man with a hood obscuring his face, ran away, taking my wallet and watch. The invasion of my personal space and the eruption of old fears shocked me. I couldn't believe that happened to me, someone with a specific fear of hotel intrusion. This experience haunts me, a stark reminder that nightmares can come true. Story 5. The Shadow in the Hotel. It was a summer that I will never forget. I was 12 years old, staying in a bustling city hotel with my mother and younger brother. My mother checked us in while I watched my younger brother. As we sat in the lobby, a man in his 40s walked in, immediately attracting my attention. He looked extremely normal, the type of person who easily blends into a crowd. But there was something about him that made me feel wrong. Instead of going to the counter, he sat across from us, his eyes lingering too long. My mother called us over, breaking my restless thoughts. We went back to our room, and the day's events pushed the strange man out of my mind. That evening, after meeting our family, we decided to swim in the hotel pool. While we were splashing around, I noticed the man again, fully clothed, sitting by the pool. He wasn't swimming, just looking. My mother's face became tense, and she whispered that if he didn't leave soon, we would leave. 5 minutes passed, and he remained. We packed our things and left. Back in the room, we tried to settle down by watching a rented movie. My mother's nerves seemed tense, and I couldn't escape the feeling of insecurity. Midway through the movie, there was a knock on the door. Housekeeping service. It was strange that they were so late, but we needed a towel. I opened the door, and there he was, the same man, smiling strangely. My heart skipped a beat when he asked, "How do you swim?" Frightened, I stiffened. My mother, who had just finished showering, saw him and slammed the door, locked it, and called the receptionist. I urged my mother to call the police, but she insisted on changing rooms. We moved away and never saw him again. That night, I couldn't sleep as I stared into dark corners, afraid of what might be lurking.